Kelvin Heppner with RealAgriculture. We are at CropConnect in Winnipeg and joined by Mike Krueger of the Money Farm. Made the trek up I-29, Highway 75 to Winnipeg.
Easy trek,
yeah. Especially, we've had good weather this week, so that's a big part of it. You talk about wheat being potentially a sleeper in the markets for 2017. Can you expand on what you mean by that?
You know, the world's had 4 record wheat crops in a row. Virtually everybody has good crops. Prices have been depressed. Canadian producers have benefited from the strong U.S. dollar. That's helped them some. But that pattern's starting to change. Winter wheat acres in the U.S. are down probably at least 3.2 million, according to the government, maybe more. I think the spring wheat acres are going to drop at least 1 million besides that. So U.S. crop production for wheat alone could drop 14, 15 million tons. Plus there are some little problems elsewhere in parts of Europe, Western Europe, the Black Sea regions. Most of those crops are winter planted, so we don't really know till they break dormancy. But it just seems like we're going to get off of that record production pace, and demand just continues to expand every year.
So we've been hearing lately about how warm it is in Texas and some of the southern growing areas, how wheat has broken dormancy. Is that significant? Is there risk there?
You know, it could be. It was in the 90s above Fahrenheit last weekend. I'm told that crop has pretty much totally broken dormancy, the earliest in 20, 25 years. That crop had some issues before freeze-up. It was a dry fall, poor emergence. That is one part of the U.S. that's still listed as very dry, according to the drought monitors. And just from a temperature standpoint, I mean, it doesn't have to make a bad deal because it's broken dormancy, but it's going to be more susceptible if we have another real cold spell that drops that far south.
Okay. So wheat, potentially a sleeper, but we are still expecting acres. Soybeans is the thing to grow in 2017?
You know, the soybean market, oilseeds in general, have defied gravity, defied big world crop production, increasing supplies. Prices have stayed high or climbed for canola and especially for soybeans. The longer these prices stay where they are, especially through the month of February, because our crop revenue assurance prices are being established, that's going to continue to draw more acres to soybeans, away from wheat, away from corn, away from barley, and some of these other crops. And I think most analysts today think that we're going to see an excess of 4 or 5 million more soybean acres than we saw planted last year.
Mainly coming out of corn and some out of wheat, or where are those coming from?
You know, the guts of the Corn Belt will see a little bit of a shift, but the primary shift is going to be in the fringe states, the Dakotas, western Minnesota, parts of Kansas, Missouri, and I think the bulk of the switch out of spring wheat in North Dakota, western Minnesota is going to go to soybeans.
Similar to what we're seeing in Western Canada, too.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm told that you're going to have an excess of 1 million or 1.2 million acres of beans in Manitoba.
2 million.
2 million. Holy
I think last year we were already at
big numbers.
Yeah, it's growing every year. Talking about beans harvest right now underway in South America, ahead of normal in some areas, but there are some weather concerns there too, I guess?
There's been some heavy rains, particularly in northern part of Brazil, and even in Mato Grosso this week. There were videos all over the internet about 20 to 30 inches of rain in a short period of time, massive flooding. Parts of Argentina, the southern half was way too dry early and it was way too wet north, but despite all that, people still are saying, yeah, but you know, what we're harvesting is very good. So I think in general, the market wants to believe there's big crops down there. My personal opinion is that they're not going to be quite as big when all is said and done, just because of all these myriad of small problems, and that's exactly what happened last year. We talked and traded record crops in Brazil, and when all was said and done, it was 5 to 10 million tons below expectations.
Finally then, Mike, we're all tired, I think, of talking and hearing about what President Trump means for markets, trade, whatever, but it is still the elephant in the room right now. Do you see any significant policy changes, whether it's biofuels or trade with China, impacting commodity markets?
Tough question. I don't see any change in biofuels, at least in the near term, mainly because I think they've got so much else going on that they want to accomplish. That's going to be way down on their list. And I'm not sure they really want to trim that back at all. Anyway, in terms of trade agreements, yet to be seen. People have to understand that Trump wants manufacturing jobs. He hasn't even mentioned agriculture and all of these things. So my opinion is it'll come down to, once they start some of these bilateral trade negotiations, can he or his people differentiate between manufacturing and agriculture? I don't know how that's going to turn out. I think people also have to understand that it's easy for China to say they won't buy from us, but they really don't have that choice. It's easy for Mexico to say we're not going to buy any corn from you, but because of logistics and everything else, it's very difficult for that to happen.
Okay. Well, thanks for taking the time to join us, and safe travels home, Mike.
Thanks very much.